Batman has existed for 86 years and faced over 600 villains. Most are forgotten after one issue or updated later, yet despite the many duds that didn't make the cut, Batman's Rogues Gallery is one of the greatest of all time. But when you think Batman, you don't usually think of 600 villains. Most usually think of about 6. Everybody has a top 6, and each one of them is different from the next. You can put your 6 rogues in the comments below, but I guarantee one of these names will pop up. Penguin, Riddler, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Catwoman, and of course the Joker. These are the A-listers, the icons you see in your head when you hear someone say Rogues Gallery. But they're not the only icons you know. I have another 6, my Anti-Rouges Gallery. And while the core rogues reflect Batman's present, my anti-rogues reveal Bruce Wayne's future. But before I tell you who those guys are, I should clarify something. What did I mean just then when I used the word reflect?
Daychaser Media.
Subscribe.
Me! There I was, holed up in this quarry. When Batman came nosing around, he was getting closer, closer.
And?
I threw a rock at him. It was a big rock.
A very common conversation among the Batman fandom is the idea that each member of the true Rogues Gallery reflects a different aspect of the Batman's personality, often doing so in contrast, acting as a foil or a funhouse mirror to what Batman is, or what he stands for. For example, Bruce Wayne, the wealthy, attractive billionaire playboy philanthropist who uses his vast riches to care for the citizens of Gotham City via his family's company, Wayne Enterprises, versus the Penguin, the greedy, ugly, and nigh undisputed crime lord of Gotham City's underworld, operating out of the opulent Iceberg Lounge. If Bruce Wayne represents the idealization of clean money wealth, the Penguin is what happens when a dollar gets dirty. The Batman is at times called the world's greatest detective, a title that he earned based on his extremely gifted intellect and his dedication to using that brilliance to selflessly build a better world. The Riddler is also a high-level genius, and he too could be using his mind to change Gotham for the better, and occasionally does, making money on the side as a detective's consultant. But for the most part, he's obsessed with proving himself the greatest mind in the world by seeing Batman die from the failure of solving one of his riddles. If the Batman is Gotham City's answer to Sherlock Holmes, the Riddler would fancy himself Professor Moriarty. Harvey Dent was once a crusader for justice in Gotham City. As a district attorney, he was called the White Knight during his campaign to be mayor. This was cut short when a mobster threw acid in his face. A major injury that had an unforeseen consequence, because up until that point, Harvey Dent was secretly fighting a losing battle with dissociative identity disorder, and this acid attack triggered a psychotic break. From that point on, he was no longer a single person, but a system of personalities in one body. The most dominant and negative of the personalities, Harvey secretly referred to as Big Bad Harv, but after the incident, they were referred to as Two-Face. A slave to duality, Harvey Dent struggles to balance himself within his new life of crime, leaving it up to a coin flip to do it for him. A struggle of dual identities that Batman knows all too well. Scarecrow, formerly Dr. Jonathan Crane, worked in Arkham Asylum as a psychiatrist. He was a specialty member of the staff who believed he could treat his patients by examining them through their fears. His ulterior motives, however, were not based in treatment, but in exploitation. With a backing in chemistry, he developed a fear toxin, turned it into an aerosol, and sprayed it in the face of some of his patients, giving them violent hallucinations of what they feared most. Arkham staff naturally fired him for this. His response was to inflict his obsession with fear upon Gotham City. Crane converted his gas into a liquid and loaded it into a gauntlet with finger-mounted syringes to inject fear toxin directly into his victim's bloodstream. Like the Batman, he too weaponizes fear, not on criminals, but on everyone. The part of the conversation that centers around Catwoman typically revolves around Bruce Wayne's take on the battle of the sexes, but I've always seen her reflection differently. To me, Catwoman is a personification of Bruce Wayne's lust for the life of a vigilante. He secretly enjoys being Batman a lot more than he should. He keeps this under wraps with most, but Catwoman has a way of bringing this out of him. Bruce Wayne is not fully aware of Catwoman's effects on him, which is why these pent-up emotions manifest in the form of romantic affairs or vicious fistfights.
You know what's wrong with our relationship? You always let me get too close.
Bruce Wayne likes being the Batman, but secretly, he doesn't like how much he likes it. Last but not least is Batman's ultimate nemesis. The Joker is an agent of chaos. He doesn't care about anything but proving to the people of Gotham City that this world is just one big sick joke and that he is the only one who has ever seen the punchline.
What the?
Batman fights for order, sincerity, and the security of a Gotham crime-free. But the Joker wants a crime spree, born from the blood of the Bat. Hope will die at his feet, citizens will die with a smile, and all this horror started at the moment when Batman accidentally let the Red Hood fall into a vat of chemicals. Such a brutal, horrible irony. Batman wanted to create order, but accidentally created ultimate chaos. That joke is on him. You see, each member of the Core Six reflects something very dark about the Dark Knight and his one-man war on crime. But war is hell. Ask any veteran who came back home with pieces of their body and mind left behind. War can change people for the worse. And my anti-rogues are a warning to what changes await the Batman if he's not careful, especially the first on my list, who is a warning for what could happen if that war on crime breaks Bruce's mind. A happy childhood, a wealthy family with loving parents. To have even one of these things in Gotham City is a reality that few have ever known. Bruce Wayne was born with all three of these privileges and enjoyed them until his parents were tragically taken from him at the tender age of 8. The same could be said about Victor Zsasz, except Zsasz actually had much more time with his parents than Bruce did. They were with him well into his 20s, even seeing him parlay a bit of their riches and create a fortune of his own. His parents' love gave Victor purpose in life, abundance in wealth, and a sense of identity, but that wouldn't last forever. They say that parents are supposed to give their children roots and wings. Well, Zsasz's wings were clipped, his roots pulled up at the age of 25 when his parents died in a boating accident. He no longer had his mom and dad to keep him afloat, so he fell into a deep well of grief. To distract himself, he started traveling the world as a degenerate gambler, losing most of his parents' money as well as his own, running from the pain of his parents' death, until finally he couldn't run anymore, and he found himself back in Gotham City at a table in the Iceberg Lounge. Head to head with the Penguin himself, Zsasz was desperate for a win. But the house always wins, especially a house that the Penguin calls home. Zsasz lost $10 million in a single hand. It hit him so hard that when he looked in a nearby reflection, he saw pure nothingness in his own eyes. Taking one last look at the other patrons in the casino, Zsasz couldn't help but notice that every other gambler there had the same look, distracting themselves from their own deep wells of emptiness. He called them zombies. So Zsasz left and wandered the streets in an existential daze. Between the love of his parents and a life full of wealth, from Zsasz's perspective, he had it all, seen it all, did it all, and lost it all. And now he had nothing. He felt like he was nothing. Just another zombie. And to him, the dead should not walk in this life. so he attempted to end his own. But he was interrupted by a man who was trying to rob him at knife point. Imagine that. Zsasz already lost everything, and in his darkest hour, Gotham City sends someone else to take even more? Naturally, this sent Zsasz into a psychotic rage. He defended himself against the mugger, who fell back, terrified. Zsasz took a moment and looked deep into that man's eyes, finding the same nothingness that he discovered amongst all the other gamblers, that very same empty void he found in himself. This man was just another zombie, so he decided to end him, using the mugger's own knife against him. Zsasz said it made him feel like a god, a deity of death, liberating humans from a world that leaves you with nothing. But to remind himself that he too was also human, also nothing, he sliced a scar into his own skin, his way of grounding himself, the way his parents used to do for him, a scarring ritual that he would do for every life that he would take. Suffering and tragedy are inevitable parts of life. Everyone has gone through something horrible, but not everyone breaks. Most certainly don't break like Zsasz did. But a parent isn't just a person that gives you life, they are your gateway to it. Victor Zsasz may have developed a kind of unhealthy codependency on his parents, which broke his mind at the most vulnerable moment. And the exact same thing happened to Bruce Wayne. Zsasz's loss turned him into a god of death, but Bruce's loss turned him into a demon of vengeance. Gotham was lucky enough that Bruce's parents instilled a sense of civic duty in him that kept him on the side of good, but things can still take a turn for the worse. Batman's crusade on crime is self-funded, but even his wealth is finite. And in a way, the company, Wayne Manor, the entire Wayne family fortune, is the last bit of his parents that he has left. If he were to lose the Wayne fortune to his own irresponsible acts as a vigilante, it could be like losing his parents to Gotham's crime world all over again. The feeling that he failed on his promise to his parents and that he squandered their legacy could break him. In that situation, Bruce, like Zsasz, would have nothing left but survivor's guilt and a loss of purpose. Without that sense of purpose to motivate his crusade and avenge his parents, he could lose everything and everyone. His soul would be empty. He too could wander the streets of Gotham. Like a zombie, he too would become nothing. If Bruce Wayne is not careful, he could lose this gamble he keeps playing with his mind. But the next Anti-Rogue shows us how he could lose his very humanity. Ichthyosis vulgaris, epidermolytic hyperkeratosis, myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy, degenerative atavism, hyperesthesia. These are just a few of the many diseases and anomalies that describe the genetic condition that Waylon Jones was born with, a condition that caused him a lifetime of suffering. His mother died giving birth to him. His father abandoned him to be raised by his abusive alcoholic aunt. She would throw him in the tub and forcibly scrub the scales that were growing on his skin, to scrub and keep scrubbing until he was normal. Normal. A word he would both grow to hate and mourn. As the years passed and his mutations advanced, Waylon would suffer many more traumas and tragedies as his humanity was continuously denied. Waylon was blamed for the death of his childhood friend, Emma. A giant crocodile tossed them both underwater. He killed the beast, learning of his super strength and extreme breath control, but Emma didn't even know how to swim and drowned before he could rescue her. He was still covered in crocodile blood when the police found him with her body. They didn't ask questions, they didn't care that he was just a boy, they just started shooting, which taught Waylon that not only did some of his scales make him bulletproof, but the wounds that he did get healed very quickly. Years later, he got work in a traveling carnival as Killer Croc, the crocodile wrestler. After the show, Ed, his manager, denied Waylon his full payment, saying that a man who looked like him didn't have many options anyway, so he should just shut up and take what he could get. The rage that Wayland felt triggered his atavism. Involuntary primal instincts took over, and not only did he bite off Ed's hand, but he instinctively swallowed it, teaching him the unforgettable taste of human flesh. In some ways, Ed was right. Wayland didn't have many options. So eventually he moved back to Gotham and worked as an enforcer in the criminal underworld, killing for cash. Occasionally he would run his own crews, but he was an inconsistent leader, often having to bow out to deal with his ever-advancing disorder. His physiology mutated so much, it was forcing him to readapt his life around it. He ended up moving into the sewers below Gotham City, emerging only to commit crimes, or eat. His mental health started to take a serious hit after that. His atavism turned into a kind of primal personality disorder that would cause him to bounce up and down between the upper primate and lower reptilian areas of his brain, bouncing up and down between civil intelligence and feral instinct. If Batman found him at his worst, Wayland would be sent to Arkham Asylum for treatment, but he only met more tragedy. There was a terrible incident that happened after he once escaped Arkham. One of the staff there tried to psychoanalyze him, reading his file and reminding him of all his traumas. Wayland didn't want to hear it, and he didn't much care for how the psychiatrist spoke down to him like he was just some animal. So he bit off his own hand, slipped the bloody stubs through the clasps around his wrist, and walked out of his cell. He passed out from blood loss somewhere in Orphan Alley, where he was found. Wayland woke up in the apartment of the people who rescued him. One of them, a man named Edgar Mason, struck a deal with Wayland that he and his wife would take care of him while his hands healed, and in exchange, Wayland would help Edgar take over his boss's criminal enterprise. Wayland, who had nowhere else to go, reluctantly agreed with a silent growl. Over the next few days, Wayland would be visited by Edgar's wife, Juliet, who fed him food while his hands grew back. Wayland took a liking to her for this, as any person in his position would. The day came and Wayland followed Edgar to meet with his employer, Mr. Callahan, a small-time underboss in the Orphan Alley district of Gotham City. Wayland took out Callahan's crew and pinned him to a wall where Edgar put a bullet in his head. Edgar declared Wayland his right-hand man from that point on, and the two of them went to take out all who opposed Edgar. Wayland killed many in the name of Edgar's paranoid demands. Meanwhile, Edgar and Juliet were having marital problems. She was going out alone at night and not telling him where she was going. Deeply paranoid about keeping his new position, Edward demanded that Wayland become Juliet's personal bodyguard, following her everywhere she went. She didn't like this at first, but over time she and Wayland grew closer. She confessed to him that she didn't love Edgar the same way she used to, and was getting closer to Wayland than anyone else in her life. That Wayland was now the closest thing she had to a family. Edgar called Wayland into a meeting at his office and told him that Juliet had been lying about where she was going at night, and for him to head to a specific address and find her and take out whoever was there with her. Wayland went to the address and overheard men waiting for him, armed with shotguns. Edgar betrayed him. Wayland returned to Edgar's townhouse to confront him, finding instead Juliet sitting on the staircase, crying. She said that Edgar went crazy and showed him her face, where she had a fresh black eye, that he needed to teach Edgar a lesson for this. Wayland went to the location that Juliet instructed and found Edgar there. Before he could explain himself, Wayland struck him in the face, snapping his neck like a breadstick. Juliet arrived moments later and found them both, Wayland bloody and Edgar on the floor. She told Wayland that they have to escape together so she doesn't get in trouble, but she will need some money from Edgar's safe. Wayland ripped the safe door off the wall and gave her the money within. At that moment, another man came in behind Juliet and shot Wayland point blank with a shotgun. Turned out that black eye on Juliet's face was self-inflicted. More specifically, it had been inflicted upon her per her instruction by her secret lover. Tommy.
Shoot the freak again, Tommy!
Juliet cried.
Gotta keep shooting him!
But before Tommy could pull the trigger again, Waylon launched the safe door at his head, decapitating him instantly. Waylon approached Juliet, who tried to reason with him, manipulate him, trying to talk him out of punishing her for her betrayal. She said,
I know you're not a monster.
Waylon didn't fall for it. Not anymore. Batman found Waylon sitting in a pool of her blood hours later. All Waylon could say to him was, They're the monsters, not me. Put me back. Waylon Jones was never a monster. He was never a freak. He was never an animal, but he was treated like one. Throughout human history, people have occasionally found themselves in positions where their humanity was so thoroughly ignored and denied, it gave them cause to act like the monster they were being treated as. Sometimes it's just easier to wear the shoe that they force you to fit, and then kick them back in the teeth with it. Bruce Wayne found himself in a similar position after returning to Gotham City from his years training abroad. The night his parents were murdered twisted his boyish mind into something far beyond human. It made him hell-bent on vengeance, and that first night out when he failed to stop the street thugs that he targeted, he realized that Gotham was more than just a city. It was a monster. So he had to become a monster too. He donned the image of a bat, embraced the appearance of something inhuman, and created the legend of a creature that stalks criminals in the night. It shielded him, the way that Waylon's scales protected him. And this legend defended Gotham against impossible odds, the way Waylon tried to defend Emma. However, like Waylon's genetic mutations forcing the direction of his lifestyle, the Batman had gone through a sort of psychosociological mutation, and it was a twofold process. First of all, as the Batman, he bumped shoulders with metahumans that would put the gods of any pantheon to shame. Some of them literally are considered to be gods, and others not human at all. Fully alien to the Earth itself, if not wielding some kind of cosmic alien power, but all of them consider Bruce Wayne on their level, if not higher. There are even organizations that classify Batman to be a metahuman, in spite of him not having any superpowers at all, because to them, his indomitable willpower is on a superhuman level. But it gets deeper. Bruce Wayne was born wealthy. Old money wealthy, several generations deep, and if the conditions of our failing republic have taught us anything, it is this: money changes the way people's minds work. There have been several studies that prove how a person's economic situation can drastically alter and even impair their cognitive functions and development. Bruce Wayne's psychological development was atypical before his parents were gunned down. Had he been raised among the general public, he probably would have become a lawyer, or a judge, or a detective for the GCPD. But being raised with the Wayne's wealth made little Bruce neurodivergent. He was not psychologically equipped to react to his parents' death in a normal way, because he was not raised among normal people in a normal public. Moreover, he has shown signs of therianthropy as an adult. Far beyond just dressing like a bat, every once in a while Bruce would venture into deeper and darker parts of the Batcave in areas he did not build equipment on to visit with a giant king bat who lives there and apparently helps him heal his body. The king bat serving as a kind of external focus aid for Bruce Wayne's healing meditations. There is a thin line between man and beast. Waylon Jones didn't cross that line. He was pushed over it against his will, but the Batman walks that line willingly, at times not returning to his persona as Bruce Wayne for several days. A day could come where Batman decides to never return and begin identifying as something above human, to leave Bruce Wayne behind, rotting in the cold shadow of the giant king bat that possesses him. And the next member on this list shows us that a Batwing isn't the only Cold that Bruce Wayne could know. Some people discover their passions in life very early, and sometimes those passions are not ones that their parents approve of. In the case of the Freeze family, their son, Victor, had a passion for cryogenics. Little Victor proved himself so gifted in the subject at such a young age that he practiced his craft by freezing small animals. Disturbed by this, his parents asked him why he did these things. Victor said he didn't have any malicious intent. He didn't want to hurt these little creatures by freezing them. He just wanted to preserve them, to keep them beautiful. That seemed to only make his parents' disapproval even stronger. They sent him to a boarding school. Victor hated this. The settings, the students, he felt very uncomfortable in this place and isolated himself. His personality took a serious developmental hit as he became more reserved, more introverted, more detached from other people after essentially being abandoned by his family. He retreated deeper into his studies on cryogenics, and he got very good at his chosen craft while under all that isolation. But then someone blessed him with a hand to pull him out of it. In college, he met an intelligent, beautiful, and kind-hearted young woman named Nora. Victor, the passionate man that he was, fell for her instantly. Sadly, they only enjoyed a few brief years of love, even getting married. But shortly after the marriage, Nora was diagnosed with a rare terminal illness of which there was no cure. Victor did not want to see the love of his life wither and die. He wanted to keep her beautiful. So he put her in cryostasis, but not on his own dime. Victor was not a rich man, and he didn't have the resources to create or afford the equipment necessary to keep his wife's body preserved. So he took a job at a company called Goth Corp to get paid to use his craft and to borrow their resources while he waited for a cure for his wife's condition. Ferris Boyle, the CEO of Goth Corp, decided to shut him down. Victor was in charge of the cryogenics division, a department that Boyle had suspended months prior after Victor went over budget and Boyle suffered a multi-million-dollar loss from it. Boyle decided to head down to Freeze's laboratory with a few bodyguards to shut him down personally. Victor was erratic at the news. They didn't know it, but Boyle was about to kill his wife. Victor panicked and pulled a gun on Boyle and his men to protect her. A shootout erupted, and one of Victor's tanks was hit, flooding the office in cryogenic liquid. Boyle and his men escaped, avoiding the chemicals and presuming Victor to be dead. But he wasn't. Victor woke up amongst his cryogenic chemicals, finding that his body had been mutated to a point where he could no longer survive in temperatures that were above sub-zero. Moreover, Nora's body was gone. Boyle and his men took it with them after the chaos died down. Victor, the passionate man that he was, did not take this lightly. He built a specialized cryo suit, always set to sub-zero, that allowed him to travel. He built a freeze ray and fit it inside of a customized rifle in order to freeze objects instantly. Victor hunted down Boyle and his men and left a tundra of ice and death in his wake. Eventually tracking Boyle down, naturally afraid for his own life, Boyle proceeded to dig himself an even deeper ditch where he tried to play Nora's life as a bargaining chip. "Let me go, and I can tell you where she is. You can have her," he said. But Victor already knew where to find her and how to get her back. So he leaned in close, looked Boyle in his eyes, and said, "You cannot give me back Nora. She is already mine." Victor froze Boyle with his freeze ray, allowing him and all of his men to die in spite of knowing exactly how to revive them. He found Nora's chamber minutes later, and it was dangerously low on fuel. He fell to his knees before her as the reality of what he had done set in. He was a killer now. He got his revenge, but his wife was now going to die. The only silver lining in this was she was not awake to shame him for his sins. But Victor was not just a passionate man. He was an obsessive one. and he decided this was not the end. His wife needed fuel, and in the case of his specialized cryogenic formula, one of the components for that fuel were diamonds. Victor Fries would heist Gotham for diamonds many times, building up a reputation with his ice-based crimes. The media, although not knowing his true identity, gave him an ironic nickname, Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze would cross paths with the Batman eventually. Using his advanced intellect, he would often escape the encounters and get away with the diamonds he stole, using them later for fuel and for purchasing more equipment. But sometimes the Batman would defeat him and would have him locked away in a specialized Sub-Zero cell in Blackgate Prison, where Victor would wait for his next chance to return to his life's work, the preservation of his wife's body, who he froze in time. Forever beautiful, the way that he remembered, the way that he preferred. Obsession, control, stagnation. These are the character traits of a person who does not enjoy the river ride we call life, the ever-changing, constantly flowing river of reality. Some people take a bit of that beautiful flowing water for themselves and attempt to freeze a moment in time, but freeze themselves instead, trapping themselves in stasis, in emotional stagnation, by a moment of their past that they simply cannot let go. The world moves on around them, of course, but they just don't. They're emotionally and psychologically stuck in one place. Victor Fries had a habit of getting emotionally stuck on things that he found beautiful in life. This obsessive behavior led to a series of bad choices, of course, but it was also partially responsible for his choice in profession. Cryogenics are the physical manifestation of Victor Fries's emotional reality. Frozen. This much is easy enough to understand, but what does it tell us about Bruce Wayne? In his book, Archetypes in the Collective Unconscious, the great Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote about a concept that he referred to as a pure eternus, essentially a man who cannot grow up, who is emotionally or psychologically stuck in the mindset of his child self. To become a vigilante superhero fashioned in the likes of Zorro, the Shadow, or the Great Ghost, leaping across rooftops, swooping down on criminals, fighting crime in the night, all of this as a response to his parents' tragic death, these are not the solutions of a fully matured mind, but that of a child. Bruce Wayne built a life out of his childhood delusions, bringing that vengeance fantasy fully into reality, stagnating his growth as a man to never mature beyond his feelings of a vengeful child. Never hitting his adult milestones, his soul never leaving Crime Alley. It is still there, frozen by the noise of a bullet. Unfortunately, this is not the only icy parallel that Bruce Wayne has been expressing. Victor Fries didn't just freeze his wife's body. He also put their marriage on ice. Losing a spouse, unfortunately, is a part of the journey when it comes to finding the kind of love that he did, even if you're the one who passes first. Victor saw that opportunity to experience a natural part of life and took it away from both himself and from Nora, wanting to control the relationship more than giving Nora the happy and peaceful passing that she deserved, stagnating that precious human connection, putting both of their lives on hold. Bruce's icy attitude stagnates all human connections to people he is close to. Alfred raised him from the moment his parents died, and yet Bruce treats him like a butler in service of his mission rather than the father figure that Alfred became. Dick Grayson spent years as Robin the Boy Wonder and as Bruce Wayne's ward after his parents were killed. And even after spending years on both sides of Bruce Wayne's life, he eventually got so fed up with Bruce's standoffish nature, Dick abandoned the mantle of Robin and became a new superhero in a completely different city, Nightwing, only working with Bruce on occasion. But the greatest example of this was probably in Bruce's relationship with Andrea Beaumont. She was one of the few women that Bruce met as an adult who actually made him feel a strong emotional connection that he could not deny. Andrea made him happy, and in his mind, that happiness was unacceptable. His love for Andrea became a bridge to move forward in life, but for him, somehow, Moving forward meant that he would be turning his back on the mission, turning his back on the promise he made to his parents to defend Gotham City.
Please, I need it to be different now.
His relationship with Andrea did end tragically, and Bruce put his heart back on ice, continuing his work as the Batman. A war he would fight for the rest of his life. But life moves on. No matter what any one person does, the times will change, the ice will melt, the body will get old. Bruce Wayne cannot fight the good fight forever, and in his old years, he could find himself alone in his cave, brooding over a war that was impossible to win. All his allies dead or gone, a dark, wet, cold prison of his own making, with only his cowl as his company. Such a poor state of living is tied by a string to the next member of my Anti-Rouges gallery. Before Blackgate Prison, there were the gallows, a place where they executed 313 criminals. The streak stopped when these gallows were destroyed by the strike of a lightning bolt, and 3 days later, the death penalty was made illegal in Gotham City. Those two events made rebuilding the gallows a pointless task, and Blackgate Prison was built on top of the site sometime later. The wood from the gallows was just abandoned until an inmate by the name of Donegan found the wood in a storeroom. There was still blood on it. Donegan ignored that and took it to the wood shop where he carved it into a puppet that he named Woody. Woody became his new practice dummy and his only company. Donegan's reasons for doing this was simple. He was bored out of his freaking mind. Almost literally. The only form of entertainment that he had in this place was a book on ventriloquism that he got from another inmate. He practiced the techniques that he learned from this book every chance he could get using a hand puppet. But Woody would become his upgrade and his downfall. Soon after, he decided to perform in a prison talent show with Woody. He got a few laughs here and there, especially at the bit when Woody said he hated being named Woody. But Donegan's relationship with the hobby was becoming unhealthy. During one of Donegan's shows, Woody spilled the beans on the secret escape tunnel that Donegan had built. Donegan subconsciously said it through Woody, but he didn't register it that way in his mind. So that night, he and Woody got into an argument, and these arguments would continue on for years. Other inmates would hear Donegan arguing with the puppet from his cell at night. It was a known fact that Donegan was one of the few inmates who did not share a cell with anyone, so they knew he was in there alone. But this would change on the night where he did get his first cellmate, Arnold Wesker. Arnold Wesker was born into the Wesker crime family and no doubt was a witness to the ins and outs of a criminal enterprise as well as many criminal acts. For most, this exposure would be the education that would put them on the path of a career criminal, but not for Arnold. He didn't show much interest in that, or anything for that matter. From a young age, Arnold Wesker displayed a deeply passive, introverted personality and a chronic inability to express emotion on his own. Seeing his parents fatally hit by a truck only served to make this complex a full-blown psychological disorder that didn't manifest until years later as an adult. Apparently, Wesker found himself in a very unfortunate situation at a bar. One of the barflies decided to harass him, and Wesker just snapped. All that pent-up emotion exploding out of him all at once, and he stabbed that man to death right there on the bar floor. Wesker, of course, was shocked by his own actions, disassociating from them completely. When questioned about it, he said it was an accident. The way he remembered it, the guy just walked right into his knife. They gave him a life sentence. He got shipped off to Blackgate, where he met Donegan and Woody. For whatever reason, Wesker was very drawn to Woody and asked to play with him, but Donegan wasn't having it. He smacked Wesker so hard that he drew blood from his nose. He told Wesker that if he caught him trying to touch Woody again, that he'd kill him on sight. But Woody had his own opinion, arguing for Wesker to stand up against Donegan, to stand up for himself and to hit him back. And again, for Donegan to stop calling him Woody. Arnold cowered in the corner of his cell for the rest of the week, terrified, confused, and yet transfixed on Woody. A week later, Arnold was finally alone with Woody, still staring at him, finally taking advantage of the situation and picking him up, doing some voices with him. Donegan caught him and beat him so badly that all he wanted was death. So that night, Arnold tried to release himself from the torture of a life sentence in a cage with a maniac that hated him and a doll he couldn't touch. But his attempt was interrupted by Woody. Somehow, Woody was speaking out loud to him, telling him not to do it, and instead to break out of Blackgate using Donegan's secret tunnel. Arnold was skeptical about this, assuming that Donegan was talking in his sleep, which he was. Plus, Wesker didn't think Woody was telling the truth about the tunnel, that this whole thing was some kind of sick setup that Donegan was doing to get another chance to beat on him. But Woody proved it to him by making Arnold pull at one of the bricks, revealing the tunnel. Woody insisted that he and Wesker break out of Blackgate prison via the tunnel right then and there, exclaiming to Wesker that Donegan had finished it years ago but was too institutionalized to use it. Wesker, of course, didn't think this was a good idea. Woody threatened that if Wesker didn't break him out, that he would wake Donegan himself just so that he could finish what he started. Wesker, terrified, gave in to Woody's demands and pulled him off of Donegan's arm, which of course woke him up. Donegan, seeing Wesker with Woody for a third time, flew into a rage. He was out for blood, choking the life out of Wesker. So Wesker defended himself by bashing him in the head with a brick. Wesker started to freak out. He killed another man. Woody told him to calm down and to hang Donegan off the noose that Wesker originally set up for himself to make it look like he took his own life. Wesker did it, realizing almost immediately after that the brick was not a killing blow, that Donegan was still alive and now suffocating. Wesker escaped with Woody, gunning down 2 guards on the way out to a boat on the docks, leaving Donegan to die a painful death. Wesker and Woody crossed the river from Blackgate Island into Port Adams and walked in the dead of night to an old area in the southern part of the Fashion District. Woody told Wesker to break into a costume shop so they can change clothes and avoid the police. Wesker found some meek-looking clothes in his usual fashion, but Woody had Wesker dress him in the style of a 1920s gangster straight out of the Valentine's Day Massacre. The two of them looked in the mirror and noticed a change in Woody's face. In the scuffle prior, Donegan had knocked Wesker and Woody to the ground and gouged Woody's face, leaving a scar. Woody told Wesker that if he ever called him Woody again, he would kill him. From now on, his name was Scarface. Scarface's next move was to teach Wesker how to do ventriloquism so that people didn't see his mouth moving when Scarface spoke. But unlike Donegan, Wesker hadn't spent years practicing the craft, so he wasn't very good at it. And it really showed when Scarface replaced his B's with G's and would end up saying things like, "Alright, you gum. We're taking over Gotham City one girl at a time. We'll blast anybody that gets in our way, or we'll geet him to death. Even the gad man." From that point on, Wesker and Scarface cut a bloody path through Gotham's criminal underworld. They would fight Batman time and time again, occasionally being separated and reunited. And after several years, Arnold Wesker died. Scarface went on to have several other hosts and continued his criminal career. Batman was fully perplexed by Scarface, especially when considering the consistency of his personality given the host hopping. He was nearly convinced that Scarface was supernatural, even asking Zatanna for advice on the subject. Zatanna, being an expert in magical items, investigated Scarface and told Bruce her findings. Scarface absolutely was not supernatural, but the dummy had become a conduit for people's negative emotions. So each time the mantle was passed, Scarface appeared to be revitalized, but for all intents and purposes, he was just a dummy. But no one would dare call him that to his face while there was a hand slipped up his back. It didn't matter that Scarface was a dummy. He had become a mantle for human suffering in Gotham City. And mantles become mantles because they take on a life of their own. Bruce Wayne, like Donegan, didn't intend for the cowl to become a mantle, but for it to serve his needs to express himself, in Bruce's case, as a vigilante. But after wearing it for many years, Bruce Wayne realized that the idea he crafted to fight crime had become more than just his weapon. It was now Gotham's legend. As a result, it could be passed on to just about anyone worthy of keeping that legend alive. But the cost would be great. Bruce Wayne, whether he likes it or not, has granted the mantle of Batman certain psychosomatic properties. The life that comes with the cowl changed him, driving him deeper into the pit of despair he fell into as a child. The persona he crafted pulled these negative emotions to the front of his mind, just like Scarface's wooden body did for his many hosts, doing so in such a way that Batman's true mask has now become Bruce Wayne. Similar to Scarface, the cowl holds much more sway on people than Bruce himself does. There are some superheroes who are not actually sure whether or not the Batman even has superpowers, because the legend that cowl commands is just that strong. Even Alfred Pennyworth, who has known Bruce his entire life, was shocked at the sight of Bruce Wayne the first time he saw him in that cowl. What Alfred saw that night was not the boy he raised, but the monster that lived in that boy's head. From that point on, day or night, every choice, every act, every thought that Bruce Wayne had was dictated by the needs of the cowl, and it casted out any influence that did not serve it by filling Bruce Wayne with an unrelenting amount of guilt. In universe, Batman is a creation of Bruce Wayne, just like his other vigilante personas like Matches Malone, Insider, or even Flying Fox. They're all just puppets for him to do what he does, the many Pinocchios to Wayne's Geppetto. But above them all, perhaps even above himself, is the legendary mantle of the cowl, which is clearly pulling his strings. It is no wonder why the mantle is so coveted, given the power it has over Gotham's people. And the next member on the list shows us just how tempting and corrupting that power could become. It would be strange to consider an unborn baby to be a prison inmate, even by Gotham City's standards, but some places are worse. In the Caribbean Republic of Santa Prisca, a failed rebellion led to a brutal retaliation, with rebels captured, tortured, or sent to Peñadoro, the Hard Stone, an infamous prison that made Blackgate look like a 5-star hotel. It was here that many of the rebels would be punished with horrific prison sentences. However, they were not able to capture them all. One of the rebels escaped, and his pregnant wife was taken in his place. Under Santa Prisca's medieval laws, which caused the rebellion in the first place, this woman's newborn son was sentenced to life in prison for his escaped father's crime. His mother didn't last long, dying when he was 6 years old. The warden threw her body to the sharks, and he threw the boy into general population. There, he faced relentless abuse until a fight between inmates pushed him over a rail where he fell far enough and hit the ground hard enough to be knocked into a coma. While unconscious, he had visions of his future self. A large, domineering man destined for greatness, superior to all around him, but haunted by a demonic bat representing his deepest fears. When the boy woke up a month later, he knew his path forward to conquer his fears, to conquer fear itself. That night, the boy snuck into the cell of the inmate who put him in a coma, armed with an ice pick. The warden found him standing over the inmate, who was mutilated beyond medical recognition. Horrified, he called the boy a bane to everything holy and threw him into solitary confinement, a 5 by 10 foot cell. The warden's plan was for the cell to become the boy's tomb, but the boy just would not die. He survived on rats and the fish he caught when the cell flooded to the ceiling during high tide. He exercised to build his body and meditated to sharpen his mind, imagining himself hunting down and defeating the demonic bat of his fears. This was his routine for 10 long years. Finally, the warden took the failure and released him, hoping the other inmates would put him down once and for all. But instead, the boy's story became legend. When the inmates saw him 10 years later, strong, grown, and free, they chanted the name that the warden accidentally gave him. They chanted Bane. And for Bane, This was just the beginning. The thing about Peñadoro is that it wasn't just a prison, it was an international prison. It collected money from many countries for housing inmates from all over the world, many of them highly educated in an endless amount of subjects. And Bane took full advantage. Because the thing about Bane is that he wasn't just a natural-born warrior, he was a genius. He spent hours learning from other prisoners, mastering multiple fighting styles, speaking several languages, and reading every book he could find. Eventually, he had to smuggle in more, unlike the other inmates who smuggled in drugs. But not Bane. He lived very clean, maintaining a disciplined routine. Push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and squats, 1,000 of each every single day. Concluding his nights with 4 hours of meditation, replacing his sleep. All of this to realize his vision of being superior to all other men. One day, a member of Bane's crew mentioned Gotham City, a criminal's paradise. Bane asked who ruled this city and was told that there were many gangs, but no single gang ruled at all because they were all afraid of the Batman. Bane recognized the Dark Knight as the embodiment of his feared demon. Thus, the mission gained a new direction. Determined to conquer Gotham and destroy the Batman, Bane began devising his plan, unaware that the Warden had plans of his own. A super soldier serum was being developed at Peñadoro to thrust the brutal nation of Santa Prisca into the global pharmaceutical market. The serum was stable, but lethal, killing several test subjects, so the doctors demanded someone stronger. The Warden brought in Bane. Bane's crew, including an ex-pharmaceutical engineer by the name of Zombie, learned about the serum. Bane saw it as a weapon to destroy Batman and volunteered for dangerous tests, undergoing surgery to implant nodes that pumped the serum directly into his brain. Meanwhile, Zombie stole and replicated the formula, discovering 2 key things. First off, the reason so many patients died was because the serum actually fused together the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Secondly, the serum had a code name: Venom. When Bane learned of Zombie's success, he used meditation to lower his vital signs to a point where the machines could not detect, making the doctors think he was dead. The Warden saw this as a win and disposed of him, throwing Bane's body to the sharks, but the venom had made him stronger than ever. Bane killed a shark with his bare hands, escaped from the water, and kidnapped the Warden as ransom for a helicopter. He flew to Gotham City and tossed the Warden from the helicopter to the sharks below, a final punctuation as vengeance for his mother. Upon arriving in Gotham, Bane's plan unfolded as expected, with one complication. The venom was addictive. His crew had to create more and designed a risk system for Bane's injections. While studying Batman, Bane realized he needed more than just strength. He needed strategy. After months of preparation, he executed the next phase of his plan, breaking every inmate out of Blackgate and Arkham, exhausting Batman as he recaptured them. Bane then uncovered Batman's secret identity, Bruce Wayne, and confronted him at Wayne Manor. Bruce fought back with everything he had, but he was just too tired. Bane ultimately defeated him and broke his back. Bruce was paralyzed for a year. But when he returned as Batman, fully recovered and fully enraged, he defeated Bane, crushing his ego and his belief in his dominance. This left Bane with a lifelong obsession to break the Bat again, permanently. The clash between them showcases the idea that might makes right, with Bane determined to conquer Gotham's criminal underworld while Batman already did without actually meaning to. In a sense, Bane was right. Batman truly ruled the night. But he also rules the day as Gotham City's billionaire benefactor, shaping everything from parks to courthouses to hospitals to global exports. The Wayne family's wealth circulates throughout the city, making Bruce indispensable, but dangerously powerful. If corrupted, that power could turn him into a tyrant, manipulating institutions by day and punishing dissent by night. Such a Gotham might be safer, but it would be soulless. A fascist city-state, the Santa Prisca of the North, ruled by fear and anger. Wayne's cold world, a hateful surrogate father creating children like Bane, children like Bruce. Batman is already responsible for creating some of Gotham's greatest rogues, but unchecked dominance could birth not just another Bane, but generations of Banes. As the African proverb says, the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Gotham could spiral further into the cycle of darkness that Bruce has already been struggling to defeat. Which brings us to the final member of the Anti-Rouges gallery. Some parents wisely choose to surround their children with a community of adults who represent the best of humanity. In other words, it takes a village to raise a child. Thomas and Martha Wayne didn't just have a village, they had a city. Thomas, a surgeon and philanthropist, and Martha, a charitable socialite and the heir to Kane Chemicals. The two of them dedicated their lives to Gotham City. They loved Gotham, and eventually they loved their son, Bruce. They showed Bruce the importance of staying grounded and standing up for what was right, to deeply care for people, and to never let his privileges cloud his morals. They took him to hospitals to meet with terminally sick patients, charities to learn the importance of local and global causes, and even on walking tours of Gotham to look at Wayne family courthouses and monuments, to learn the legacy of his ancestors. But their favorite way of teaching him how to be a good person was by just spending quality time together as a family. Bruce loved movies, especially classics like Zorro and The Grey Ghost. After a special screening at the Monarch Theater, Thomas and Martha took him home. Bruce, elated from the film, was blissfully unaware that this would be the last time he would ever feel that happy again. Out of a dark corner, a man with a gun demanded their belongings. Thomas tried to stay calm, handing over his wallet while Martha gave her purse. But the mugger wasn't done. He reached for Martha's pearls. Thomas instinctively stepped in to protect her, which startled the mugger into a panic. He shot Thomas, and then fired again, hitting both parents and ripping the pearls from Martha's neck. The mugger turned and saw Bruce standing there, drenched in tears. His face, a mixture of horror and rage. Terrified by the look in Bruce's eyes, he ran off, leaving Bruce to collapse into the growing pool of his parents' blood. Alfred found Bruce and called the GCPD so Bruce can make a statement about the murder. A few nights later, Bruce woke Alfred, vowing to make them pay, to make them all pay, and that Alfred was going to help him. As a teenager, Bruce left and trained abroad, and Gotham City fell into chaos. The murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne marked the rise of crime lords and corruption, and the press renamed Park Row as Crime Alley. Years later, Bruce returned as the Batman to fight crime in the streets. Eventually, he investigated his parents' murder. He learned that the killer was a totally random mugger, not a hired hitman or anything, just another byproduct of Gotham City's crime wave, a nobody who made an earth-shattering mistake. His name was Joseph Chilton. Joe Chill. Thomas Wayne was the father of Bruce Wayne, but Joe Chill was the father of Batman. Gotham has a way of incubating human negativity, as well as creating it. Had Joe Chill committed his crime in, let's say, Central City or Metropolis, he would have been caught, fully apprehended, tried, and put in jail. But Gotham's crime culture is ubiquitous. Tragedies like the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne feel normal here. It is normal here for Gotham's people to witness horrors, some of the worst mankind can offer, just outside of their doors or even inside of their homes. Everyone in Gotham has a story of how the city burned them, scars that mark their past. But don't mistake it. This isn't indifference. Gotham's citizens aren't jaded. They're exhausted by the normality of living in constant cycles of violence. That toxic normality is what allowed Joe Chill to escape into obscurity, and in doing so, made vigilantes like Batman inevitable. Again, Joe Chill is the Batman's father, and Gotham City is his mother. The significance of what Joe Chill represents for Batman's future may not be obvious to you now, but it was best captured at the end of the video game, Batman Arkham Knight. After capturing the Batman, Scarecrow unmasked Bruce Wayne on live television, but Gotham didn't care. By then, his secret identity had become irrelevant. His actions as Gotham's protector were what mattered most to the people. After using Scarecrow's fear toxin against him, Bruce Wayne escaped, returned to the streets of Gotham, and triggered the Nightfall Protocol, leaving Gotham to believe he died. A few months later, crime continued in Gotham. Robin, Nightwing, and the others did what they could to fight back, but a new vigilante emerged from the shadows. Something reminiscent of Bruce Wayne's old persona as the Batman, and yet something much, much worse. Bruce Wayne faked his death that night, but he did it for a reason. He knew the public would accept him as their savior, but that acceptance would have been the death of his legend. Bruce Wayne understood that if he continued to be the Batman to this newly aware public, his legend would no longer be respected, but expected. It would become just another dark thing that is overly normalized, which would spread to criminals no longer fearing him as the avenger of the night.
Batman's dead! That look don't scare us no more!
And if he could not fill their hearts with fear, he could no longer fill the people with hope. Bruce's true legacy as Batman was not just in his fight against crime, but the way that he inspired Gotham to rise above its darkest days. He taught them that they didn't have to live in fear, that they could move on beyond the scars, that they could fight back. His true sacrifice was choosing to never move past what happened in Crime Alley so that everyone else had a chance to move forward from the collective trauma that is Gotham City. Joe Chill was the single most significant thing that happened in Bruce's life and yet was so small to Gotham. But big blasts begin with small sparks. Bruce Wayne must protect the legend that is Batman, or that legend will become just as small as Joe Chill. No longer a source of inspiration and vengeance fighting in Gotham's darkness, but yet another small piece of it. Too obscure for people to see, too small for people to care. These 6 roles reveal Batman's future, yes, but the real reason I selected them is how they reflect our real world's present. Minds broken, humanity deferred, people left cold without companionship, manipulative forces pulling at our heartstrings, powerful figures destroying everything they touch, and a global state of negativity so rampant and ridiculous that it has become normal. And we have been left exhausted. But what makes it worse is the lack of heroes. People we look up to have proven over and over again to have been secretly corrupt or bigoted, or even turned tail in the other direction to become sources of negativity for us. Wolves in sheep's clothing, and in some cases wolves in wolves' clothing. We're all living in difficult times and are starved for the touch of a hero who is worth believing in. I find myself looking to fictional characters like Batman to get my heroic fix these days, as a way to keep the darkness of our world from making me cynical and robbing me of my sense of hope. And I think about the Anti-Rouges because this world has taught me what it feels like to watch a hero fall under the influence of their own missteps and corruption. But just because the future may seem bleak, doesn't mean that it is already decided. It doesn't mean that we can't fight back. If you've made it to the end of this video, I only ask that you take these last 6 things I'm about to say and think about them for a good long time. 1. Don't stop believing in heroes. 2. Choose your heroes wisely. 3. Hold their feet to the fire. 4. Protect your own sense of hope. 5. Be accountable for your own actions. And 6. Read 1 through 5 again. because you might already be the hero in someone else's story, or even the hero in your own story. So don't let yourself become the villain.